Have you ever avoided a conversation because you knew it might turn uncomfortable? Hello and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new to this channel, then I welcome you to my channel. My name is Madhu Rana, and on my channel I talk about communication. So if you want to communicate with confidence and clarity, then you are at the right place. Coming back to the topic, it may have happened to you sometime, or you might have done this, that you may have avoided a conversation because you knew that it may turn out to be uncomfortable, and such conversations are known as difficult conversation. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to handle difficult conversation calmly, or how to disagree without damaging the relationships. So let's talk about this in detail in this video. Now let's talk about the understanding which people have about difficult conversation. Yes, so what people think is it's the words, or it's the perfect words which is needed to handle a difficult conversation. But my dear friend, in a difficult conversation, it's not the words that matters. It's the emotional control that's the most important thing. Yes, you heard that right. In a difficult conversation, it's the emotional control that plays the major role. Because in the difficult conversation, it's the tone that matters more than the logic. Let's discuss this in detail. Now let's understand and talk about why conversations goes wrong, or why difficult conversations goes wrong. So what happens in a difficult conversation is, when there is a difficult conversation, emotions rises quickly. People feel that they're attacked, and defensiveness begins, and thus listening stops. I'll repeat it. So in an emotional conversation, people's emotions rises very quickly. People feel attacked, defensiveness begins, and listening stops. Yes, that basically happens in a difficult conversation. Let's understand this through an example. You're having a conversation with your manager, and your manager says that this is your mistake. And if you haven't worked on your emotional quotient, or you haven't worked on your emotional intelligence, then the moment your manager says that this is wrong or this is your fault, so you feel like anger raises, you got anxious, and then you feel that you haven't done it, but still your manager is attacking you, he's pointing out your mistake, and you become defensive. And then when emotions rises and person becomes defensive, so the person stops listening, and that's how the difficult conversations goes wrong. Because now you're not listening, you are just defending yourself. However, if you have worked on your emotional quotient, or if you have worked on your emotional control, then you would be able to handle such conversations with ease. So let's discuss this in detail. Let's talk about the 4 common mistakes in an emotional conversation, or in a difficult conversation. In a difficult conversation, you will going to react immediately, and in such a situation there is no pause. The second mistake is you're trying to prove that you're right, and because you're trying to prove that you're right, this actually escalates the conflict, or the conflicts, instead of settling down, the conflict increases because you're just trying to prove that you're right. The third mistake which you might be doing in a difficult conversation is raising your tone or raising your voice. And the impact of this is that this triggers the other person. Because if you are increasing your tone, or if you're increasing your voice, this will going to increase anger in the other person, or this triggers the other person. And the fourth problem which you might be doing in a difficult conversation is to avoid the conversation altogether, that you'll say that I don't want to talk. And the impact for this is that the problem still remains, or the problem remains unsolved. So these are the 4 common mistakes which you might be doing in a difficult conversation. First is reacting immediately. Second is that you are trying to prove that you're right. Third is you're increasing your tone, and fourth is that you are completely avoiding the conversation. And these mistakes, they escalates the conflict, they trigger the other person, and as a result the problem remains unsolved. So those are the 4 common mistakes that happen in a difficult conversation. Now what can you do to handle the difficult conversation with calmness? So to handle a difficult conversation with calmness, or to disagree in a difficult conversation without disrespecting the other person, or without affecting the relationships, you can follow the following things which can help you to handle a difficult conversation calmly. First is responding, and responding with a pause. My dear friend, understand that reacting is always immediate and responding is always with a pause. So when someone, for example, your manager is saying this is your mistake, so instead of reacting immediately, respond that too with a pause. Take a pause and then respond. Second practice which you could do, or second thing which you could follow to handle a difficult conversation, is focus on understanding, not on winning. When someone is saying, or your manager is saying this is your mistake, try to understand why is he or she saying so. Is there something really, you may have done something which you have missed. So try to understand the problem and not just try to win the conversation. So the first thing is respond with a pause, and second is, instead of focusing on winning the conversation, focus on understanding the conversation. The third thing which you can work on is to handle the difficult conversation is speak clearly but not aggressively. Yes, you should be firm in what you're saying, but your tone should not be high, or your voice should not be high. You should not sound aggressive, and still you should be firm. So for example, your manager says that this is done by you, but you haven't done it. So there are 2 ways of saying it. Sorry sir, I haven't done it. No, I haven't done it. So the second time when I said that no, I haven't done it, shows that I'm aggressive, that shows aggression. And this aggression triggers the other person. So you should say the things clearly but not aggressively. You should be firm in whatever you are saying, but your tone should still be calm. So that's point number 3, where you have to say whatever you are saying calmly and firmly, but not aggressively. And the fourth point is, do not try to avoid the conversation. Of course, when someone is pointing out mistakes, it's human nature that you will going to feel triggered, but that's what emotional control is all about. You need to have emotional control on yourself, and such conversation should not be avoided, because avoiding the conversation will not going to solve the problem. The problem still remains unsolved. So you should never avoid such conversation where there is a difficult conversation. So the fourth practice which you could do is, don't avoid the conversation, just handle this with the emotional control. So the 4 practices which helps you handle the emotional or the difficult conversation is, first is you should respond with a pause. Second is try to understand and don't just try to win the conversation. Third is keep your tone low, but still you can say whatever you are saying firmly but not aggressively. And fourth is complete the conversation, don't avoid the conversation, because avoiding the conversation will not going to solve the problem. My dear friend, problem still remains there if you avoid such conversation. So let's talk about a simple framework which you could follow to handle the difficult conversation. And this is pause, acknowledge, and respond. So pause, acknowledge, and respond. So you are having a difficult conversation. For example, your manager is saying that this mistake is done by you. So you don't have to become aggressive. You just have to take a pause, and then you can acknowledge and then respond. In a real world scenario, how you can do is, your manager is saying something to you. So you'll say that, I understand your point, but this is my situation, or this is my scenario. And then you can say whatever you have for yourself, firmly but calmly. So you just have to pause and should not react. You have to acknowledge by using the phrases like, I understand your point, and then you have to respond. So pause, acknowledge, and respond. This is a simple framework which you can follow to handle a difficult conversation. And with that, we come towards the end of this video. My dear friend, understand that the real communicators don't avoid the difficult conversations. They just handle that calmly and with emotional control. And with that, I finish this video. I hope this video is helpful to you. If you find this helpful, then like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Stay happy always.